I'm a big Dave Matthews Band fan because I'm from the Northeast, and that's what you do in high school is get drunk and listen to Dave Matthews Band. But I didn't know that Tommaso Ciampa actually got his name from a Dave Matthews Band song. It's
what's the name of the song?
I believe it's the one like Crash Into Me. It's now I'm gonna blow the spot. Can we cut?
No, we're keeping that.
Attention wrestling fans, you're in the blast zone for the only podcast where we blow kayfabe wide open and let you know what it really takes to become a professional wrestler. Presented by America's Academy of Professional Wrestling, this is the Buckle Bomb, and you're about to get blown up.
Welcome back, wrestling fans, to the Buckle Bomb, presented by America's Academy of Professional Wrestling. I am your host, Buck Bomber, and we're back in the bomb shelter with John Warsaw.
What is up, everybody? Nice to be here.
And ducking and covering with us is Jordan Linhart.
Happy to be here. Very first podcast, first time on here, I should say. And we have a topic that's near and dear to my heart. Pretty much means everything to me in wrestling. In fact, if everything else went away and you had just this one element, I would still love pro wrestling.
Honestly, same.
Mm-hmm.
Usually we mill about before we get right into the topic, but you know what? We're already there. Let's go. Definitely. This week we're talking about gimmicks. Definitely for me, gimmicks come before everything. My thing about wrestling for the longest time is I liked promos. I liked entrances. I liked, the big story moments. The whole match, I'm just like, whatever,
yeah.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
I just want to see the guys in shiny clothes yelling at each other, and
Right.
then, the Space Wizard comes out and goes, whoa, and lightning strikes.
Yeah, right?
I love that. My philosophy has always been, I love when pro wrestling is goofy. I love when it is stupid. Like, people think I'm a really big fan of RoboCop. I'm not. I just really love that time RoboCop came out, bent those steel bars to save Sting.
Do you know who Shockwave the Robot is?
I don't. Please tell me.
Okay. He's actually a really good worker, and that's when I really love things. When, someone like Ebeson, when they're a gimmick who can, have a good work rate match as well. But Shockwave the Robot is a really good dude. He's from Albany, but he has probably spent close to like $10,000 on RoboCop gear.
Wow.
Not RoboCop, but just Robo wrestler. Yeah, robot gimmicks. And I mean, it's a freaking spectacle. When he comes out, it's all, like troned out. He does the, robot walk. He's got all the mannerisms. And then he kind of sheds, the entrance gear into something he can actually move with.
Man, that is something I hate about professional wrestling is when people come out in like something so amazing.
But they don't wrestle in it.
And then they just throw it off.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Vader should have just been mauling people with his horns and stuff to death.
Absolutely. There's that guy, what was his name? He always came out like wearing a fur coat, dressed like a plague doctor. I would say Martin Shkreli, but I know it's not Martin Shkreli. That was the...
No, he was in jail, but it's... you're close. It's Marty Scurll.
There we go.
The Martin Shkreli of wrestling.
Yeah, so gimmicks to me are, kind of like y'all. They're very special, but I'm probably a little older than y'all. So growing up, I didn't have cable television. So all I knew of wrestling growing up was WWF Saturday morning wrestling. It was the one free show, except for the once in a while they'd have like the Saturday night main event, whatever. So I grew up with WWF.
Saturday morning.
And at that time,
like cartoons.
Everyone was a gimmick, right? You had a cop. You had a barber. You had Elvis Presley wrestling. Everything was a gimmick. There was no just Jim and Bob fighting, right? It was all whatever. It was like, oh, this guy came to the ring with a lizard. This guy had a snake. This guy had a parrot. Right. So then...
What about a sock on your hand?
Well,
This was
that was a
before.
little later. This is even before that.
Before you get to the sock, you have
So,
to be a Sato.
And there was a trash man. I mean, there was a wrestler who was a trash man. It was
Duke the dumpster.
It was usually some type of occupation. Well, then fast forward a couple years, I get a little older. We finally get cable TV. So I got TBS, and I was able to, for the first time, watch NWA, WCW, and it was kind of the transfer time. And they had gimmicks, but that to me
Few
was
and far between.
I thought it was more like, and remember, I'm young enough to still
Believe?
100%. It's two
You
guys
had
fighting, right? So when I saw those first couple episodes of that, it was just names, right? No one had crazy gimmicks. I mean, there were,
yeah.
but it was
Sting.
like the main guy was Ric Flair, right? And that's his. To me at the time, that's just his real name, right? And who's his buddy? Well, that's Arn Anderson. That's just another name, you know.
Yeah, just name Amerson.
Here's this other guy, is Dean Malenko. You know, no one was. It wasn't the dumpster. It wasn't earthquake. It wasn't typhoon.
Yeah.
It was named. So to me, I was like, wow, this is just two guys fighting. These aren't wrestlers. Ththese are like two guys they found at the bar.
And how did that appeal to you?
So.
I get the other way. I get what we started off saying we love gimmicks, and now you're kind of traitoring on us. Now you're saying
so
You came up with this topic.
I did, but I'm saying so like the history of me. I grew up on gimmicks. Now, also back then, the internet was not what it is now. So I would go to Walmart, HEB, those local grocery stores here, and go to their magazine section, the PWIs. And they would have these, the top 10 rankings and everything. So, I mean, I knew there was other federations, other wrestling leagues, but I could never watch them.
right.
So, but I would see. And then fast forward a little bit later, and now the business is open to me as a fan. I'm not a worker, nowhere close to it yet. But now I'm like, you know what? Ric Flair is a gimmick.
Sure.
Now, it might be what he lives nonstop 24/7, as we find out later on, and people's private lives more open. But, the robe, right? The woo, the spilt liquor, the women, the Rolex wearing, all that. So then I started finding out all these people that I thought was just Jim and Bob they pulled out of a bar to wrestling. Well, they're actually good gimmicks theirself in a different way than I'm the dumpster guy and I wrestle you also.
Right. I mean, presentation is everything, right? Like, Bret Hart to me, like, he was the coolest dude ever when I was a kid. So freaking cool. And what he's known for is his pink, right? Like, that's his gimmick in a nutshell, is really just that he wore pink and black. Otherwise, he's a great wrestler who is a winner and comes from a family, but like he didn't have a gimmick.
Exactly. But you know what? It's funny you said Bret Hart. So my dad was old school, and he'd watched wrestling growing up, whatever, but was never as big into me. But I remember sitting there watching, and Bret Hart comes back, and he goes, "Y'all know what?
Pretty good.
That man's a badass if he can wear pink, yeah, and kick ass."
I've heard similar comments from like non-wrestling fans before when they say, someone said that about when Sandow. What was Sandow's gimmick where he was like the Miz's impersonator or something?
He was stunt double.
Yeah. I guess when he did his big turn though, he like wore pink or something. Someone was like, man, he's got to be the toughest guy just for wearing that out there.
All right, I got a question for y'all. What is the best gimmick of all time? I've got what I think's the hands down answer.
That is
Okay.
It's a big question. Yeah, you answer first. 'Cause I
Sell
gotta
me
think
on
for a
this
while.
because
So this, I think if I say it, no matter what, everyone would give in and agree with me. But I just want to know what y'all think first. It might be the same.
okay.
All right, I'll go ahead and say what I think it is. It's The Undertaker.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah, it's The Undertaker, right?
Yeah.
He's got 20-something years. I mean,
Right. It's unparalleled.
yeah.
His whole
And-
career is completely unparalleled.
Exactly. And we know Mean Mark wasn't exactly over, but The Undertaker sure was.
To hear him give his speech, just talking like normal Southern Texan boy Mark Calloway, it kind of like killed me.
Yeah.
6-year-old me was just like, what's wrong with him?
Exactly.
He's got the Rona. Something's wrong with his voice. Yeah. No, it's the thing is gimmicks usually fail because they are not able to evolve, right? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can get legs underneath a rapper gimmick for so long, you know, and then they thought we got to make John Cena do more than just be
Right.
a rapper. We got to, you know, add different elements. And that's like the Undertaker just kept changing and evolving that thing. You know, everybody's got their time where Taker was perfect to them. I just rewatched like Ministry. I didn't realize that was only like a 3-month thing. Like that was so short. But to me, it was so like epic and just like such a spectacle. It felt like a longer period, like a longer stretch between like the Ministry of Darkness turning into the corporate ministry and all that. Dude, that all happened in like 3 months. Like Midian and Viscera, they were like flashes in the pan. The Brood being in there, they were in and out, and stuff was quick. But the Undertaker just always, you know, I thought the one-eyed mask gimmick when he broke his orbital bone, being like Phantom of the Taker, you know, it's always so good. It's everything he did.
All right, one more thing off these gimmicks. Sometimes I'm kind of sad that the business is as open as it is now,
Of course.
because I love the stories of back in the day when people couldn't break their gimmick outside of the wrestling business.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, you heard of, who was it? The Wild Samoans went to jail because they couldn't
Wouldn't
speak
speak
English. Right.
Right, I've heard that one.
Right. I heard an interview with Ted DiBiase talking about how pissed he got because he had to buy the whole bar drinks because he's the $1 million man and money doesn't matter to him.
Right.
And then he's like,
Oh, damn.
and he's like, I'd had a bad week.
Someone
The
worked.
houses were low. It's like took my whole paycheck, but I had to be the gimmick. You know.
Oh my, that's amazing. Someone really worked that very nicely.
Oh, I'm sure it was another wrestler.
Yeah,
Ted
no,
can
exactly.
pay.
I heard that Nikolai Volkov like learned enough Russian to not speak English publicly for like 20 years or something.
Yeah.
Like, if you ran into him in the street, he would be Nikolai Volkov. I love that too, man. It's the thing that probably devastates me the most about the current state of wrestling is that everyone wants to know the behind the scenes stuff more than they do the actual show, the actual art of wrestling.
Yeah, really these days, I think, like, children still believe.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the little guys, they still believe, and for them, I'm always just like,
Same.
I'll be the gimmick all I want. For, like, adults, I'll just be like, hello, sir, would you like to buy my shirt, please? But for
Right.
kids, I'm just like, I didn't cheat.
Right.
If I cheated, I would have got caught.
Exactly.
Stupid, jeez.
Rotten kids.
Hey, your kids are, like, really stupid.
Yeah, and they will agree with you. One time, I just for cheap heat told a kid that Santa Claus wasn't real.
Ouch.
Yeah, that was a big that was a decision I kind of regretted. But his mom was sitting right next to him, and she was delighted. She was so glad that somebody had spilled the beans to this kid.
She didn't have to do it
that She
now.
didn't have to do it. And, dude, she popped so hard for me telling her kid Santa wasn't real.
Yeah, because this stuff is still super real to kids. Like, I remember I tore a kid's sign once. He buried his face into his dad, and he was, like, sobbing, and I was like...
I'm sorry.
As a person, I was like...
Yeah,
Jesus
disgusted
Christ,
in
what
yourself.
have I done? But as
Yeah.
a worker, I was like, yes, this kid is believing. This kid is believing that he has been victimized, and I have torn up his. I mean, because I did tear up his sign, but you know, he got a free T-shirt later. So I think
Don't try to vindicate yourself. You're a disgusting man, and I'm just kidding. No, you're right. It's what we have to do is really like go against some of our own ethical side. I have to do it myself. I'm actually like the most unviolent person. I hate boxing, MMA. I hate all that stuff. I am totally against violence in every way. I think everything can be resolved without violence. So here I am.
So what I do?
Yeah.
I come up ways to destroy you.
Yeah. I want my violence fake. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
I care a lot about like people's well-beings and health, but every once in a while realize I'm kind of the antithesis of that.
Yeah, I had an epiphany a few months ago, or maybe it is an epiphany I repeatedly have. I think to myself, would Mr. Rogers be disappointed that I'm in an entertainment that promotes violence?
No, he would not, because Mr. Rogers was the biggest work of them all. Come on now.
Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me. No. I've seen a video of him go in front of senators and just
presenting PBS basically as like we need to keep this so kids can keep like being educated by TV and not just
no. But hold
don't
on.
tell me that's.
I'm not saying no. I'm not saying he's a bad person or mean or against what he did. I'm saying what was his show?
It's Mr. Rogers.
He talked to puppets.
Yeah.
He changed vests and then put the other vest back on to stay in the same house. It's all a work the whole time, right? It's just a work towards kids.
Are you saying that Bray Wyatt is Mr. Rogers' demented evil brother?
It could be. That'd be a great gimmick.
That would be.
Man, I was thinking before I came here today. Because I was a big fan of Bray Wyatt. I still am a big fan of Bray Wyatt, but I'm like, where is Bray Wyatt? Where is he?
There's a lot of rumors out there right now.
There's a lot of rumors, but there's nothing solid, and is it coming up on a year? Because it feels like it's been a year to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure when he got released, but you're touching on something that's so interesting about wrestling right now, though, because Triple H and Stephanie and Nick Khan have risen to the top there at WWE. There's all these interesting like free agents. Like Wyatt just has to come back. Like, if you want to talk about gimmicks, he's the best gimmick that they've come up with in the last 15 years.
I was gonna say I now have my answer, because I was thinking of I was trying to think who do I like specifically because of their gimmick, and my brain just kept being like John Cena, Kairi Sane, Asuka, and I was like no, for like gimmick, and now I'm like, oh yeah, Bray Wyatt. Mm-hmm. I think The Fiend was great, but I liked him before that. Ooh, I got my scary lantern. I'm walking out, and ooh, I got all these kids wearing sheep masks, and one of my like favorite moments ever, and of course it was all gimmick. It was all gimmick. Just when he's in the center of the ring, Braun and
Brody.
Rowan.
Yeah,
I don't know if Brody was there. But they're wearing masks, and the lights are all out except one spotlight on them, and he's falling to his knees, and he's going and then some guy wearing coveralls and a sheep mask comes up behind him, and they look at him, and it's all like, wow. Dude takes off the mask, it's John Cena, and that's one of my favorite moments in professional wrestling. I think about that, and I get chills, because it was great, and that's all gimmick. That's all gimmick. You didn't need wrestlers for that moment. You just needed good workers for that. You just
right.
Yeah.
It's funny, because I heard you talking earlier about like John Cena. You're like, hey, this rapper thing can only be so long, right? Mm-hmm. So you think of all these long-term wrestlers, the Hogans, the Undertaker, the Cena, all these guys who had long careers. And I'm talking like 20 years or close to it at least. And Cena is pretty special because like Hogan, he changed his gimmick, but what'd we do? We went face to heel, right?
Okay.
It's kind of easy to say, oh, now I'm bad guy. I was good guy forever. But Cena was the constant face.
Yeah.
So him... maybe Sting a little, but Sting kind of went back and forth with the NWO heel and all that too. But like he's that guy who changed gimmick. Yeah, morphed his gimmick really, but was never like I think the easy way out's to say, oh my God, he attacked his buddy. He's so evil now, you know?
Yeah, being
Cena
evil
was
is a gimmick.
Face.
No, right. Yeah, actually, when we started this, I was like, should we define gimmick? Do we need to, like, say this is what we're going to determine as a gimmick? Because, yeah, you could just say, right, if turning heel is a gimmick, right? He's evil.
Right.
Yeah.
Or he's,
Well, I mean, that's the
old school baby
That's
face.
the easy. I shouldn't say easiest. The most basic gimmick change is you're good guy, now you're bad guy.
Right. He
You
had
know?
a change of heart. That's
Exactly.
that's his character.
And it's
He's
all
found
you know. That's that you say
the
change
path.
of hearts. That's the one. You know, when you're a true fan too, is when you see the bad guy turn on the other bad guy, and all of a sudden he's good guy. Like, oh, I could only put up with this for so long.
Yes.
So if I had to like draw a line in the sand between what's a gimmick and what's not a gimmick, I would say, just, can you describe it in 2 words without one of them being guy or man? Like,
Yeah.
John Cena is hero guy, you know?
He is the doctor of thugonomics.
Okay,
Excuse me.
okay. Yeah. Yeah, you got me on that. But like,
Okay, so you're saying that Cena didn't have a gimmick once he dropped the.
well, his gimmick is being a guy. He's a man.
No, I think
guess now he's a
his
movie
gimmick,
star.
and like I said, it's that morphing. He was I'm the cool rapper guy, and as the rapper, he got into that never give up, all that, and that's kind of the whole gimmick now.
Sure.
Okay.
You know, is never give up,
Yeah.
shoot for the
Catchphrases
moon.
are sick,
Exactly.
are gimmicks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell,
Okay.
no, Hacksaw also was like a pro-American guy, but I was gonna say his gimmick was just calling everybody a hoe.
But he had the USA chant.
But he was very
Yeah,
much
yeah.
a America gimmick type guy. Who's a gimmick that just says something? How about Funaki? The
Okay.
guys that said evil at the end of their right? Was that Taka Michinoku's group, the Kaientai guys that were
yeah.
just evil?
yeah.
Okay. I'm a little more stringent about it. I'm like, when I think of gimmick, I think of zombie wizard, alien, you know, robot. You know, when it's just you know, a guy like, I don't know, Daniel Bryan. I don't really see like gimmick. I just see wrestler man. Here he comes. There he is.
Well, so like when I think of Daniel Bryan, it's obviously different now because now everyone thinks of him as one of the best.
right.
But his gimmick forever was underdog.
Yeah.
You know, that was his whole gimmick.
Okay, that's fair.
Was the little underdog who,
Yeah.
you know, had to go through the original NXT thing, and then
Right.
remember the Miz was putting him down. He's just a little wannabe wrestler, even though he had like 10 years on Miz in the business. But you know, and then finally, you know, at WrestleMania, that was enough in one night to kind of change him, where he's no longer the underdog story. But then, you know, obviously, then it was kind of because the injury. He was like the comeback story because,
Right.
you know, but now I think you do get to a point, depending who you are, you know, and now there's so much smart fans out there where, you know, there's awards named after him for best workers and everything.
Right.
So it kind of becomes like, that's your gimmick.
Yeah, he
Like,
transcended gimmicks.
Exactly.
That's something every main eventer like superstar will have happen, is that they transcend kind of the idea of a gimmick, right? Undertaker, we can call him, you know, Evil Dead Man, whatever you want to say or whatever, but like he's so much more than that. You can't just call him like, you know, funeral home worker or whatever.
Right.
You know?
Well, you know, there's so much into the gimmick too. It's not just the appearance and who I am, right? If you go back to
It's a
original
story,
Undertaker,
right?
he would take finishing moves, if he lost, take the 3 count, and then still sit up, no sell it.
Yeah.
You know, like that was part of his whole gimmick was no sell everything.
Right.
And especially when he started as Taker, it would have been like you'd have pissed off so many people saying, "Hey, my gimmicks, I don't sell." You know.
Right? I know. I think about that sometimes because when was the last time you saw like a real squash match? We just don't do it. Workers now, like, we're just different. We want everybody to be happy and to get their stuff over and stuff. so we wouldn't just be like, I'm just gonna have you go out there and not sell
Right.
for this guy,
That's true. Pulling back the curtain a little bit on that subject. So me and Christopher Black were talking with Ollie Summers about our match last Saturday, and Ollie was like, "I don't actually want to bump you because everybody else kind of no-sells your size," and it was like, "Huh?
Yeah.
Well, thank you."
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but no, yeah, you don't really see it's not so like cut and dry as it used to be,
No, exactly. That's like when you were saying you think of gimmicks, like what you're talking about, like Space Wizard and all that. That makes me think like 80s, early 90s gimmicks. The extreme, like
Your atom bombs.
Exactly. Yeah. I was really
loved
born on the same island they did the nuclear bomb testing, and it gave me super strength.
Yeah, the Yucca Flats in Nevada. He's really from there.
Like now there's. I mean, they do have a little, if you think of someone like Bray or, a couple of these guys, there's no more, like, superhero wrestlers.
Yeah.
Like, kind of like Undertaker.
The Nikki ASH gimmick. It's unbearable. And this is somebody who loves their stuff goofy, like DDT and,
Right.
Michinoku Pro and Osaka Pro. Man, Nikki ASH just has to be terminated.
Yeah,
She's great, but her gimmick sucks.
Yeah, I mean, but like I said, I do love when wrestling is goofy and stupid. But if it's not the right kind, it's very difficult to swallow. Like,
well, it's try hard. This is what the ASH gimmick comes across to me.
You know what? Like,
try hard.
You're great, right? Like, I think there's 100% a place for goofy, comical, hoity-toity, whatever you want to call wrestling. But the problem, at least in my opinion, is I do that, but hey, halfway in the match, let's have a serious exchange, and we'll get real technical, and we'll do this and that. I don't think you can have both, especially when at the end of the match, I'm going to lose for some goofy reason, Yeah. It's like you got to 100% commit, either way, whichever way it is. But you got to, like, commit to that. I don't think you can go back and forth. And kind of with her, like, every once in a while she's like, oh, I'm serious. I'm going to go after the title. Mm-hmm. And then the next, it's, oh, I'm the goofy, almost super. It's...
Yeah. On TV, it is super important to keep people, in one. I think, honestly, so I had only watched WCW or WWF until 98. And that's when the big explosion happened. So I'm trying to go back and forth between WCW and WWF. And WCW just changed all of my guys' gimmicks. Rick Martel is out here just being like a greaser or something. Yeah. He didn't have a gimmick. He wore a leather jacket to the ring. But he was the model, and he was perfect as the model. Why would you play with that? Anyway, I just couldn't watch WCW because it made no freaking sense, man. It changed everything. There was no cohesiveness. There was no, what am I looking for? It didn't feel like anything fit in canon. It was just, all right, this week, these things. Doesn't have, and wouldn't have anything to do with last week.
No, yeah. And if you listen to, like, Bruce Pritchard or anything, and back when WWE/F was really kicking, he would say, like, the first thing they did is after WrestleMania, they planned the next WrestleMania. Dang. And then booked backwards. And I don't know how much of that goes on anymore. I think a lot of it, even as times, seems like it's booked week to week,
For sure. I think we're seeing that kind of happen live with AEW, and it's really interesting because you could tell that things changed from the beginning of AEW to, like, where it is even 6 months ago. AEW didn't have all these guys like Bray Wyatt out there that they could choose from, like real star power guys who move the needle, like Punk and Danielson. And so they kind of like planned things for like getting, Adam Page over and then having whoever, dethrone him. But I think, it's been rewritten.
It's funny to me. It's like Vince is gone, and now the internet, everything sucks wrestling community type people. It's like Tony Khan is kind of taking that Vince McMahon role.
Yeah,
It's like, he's just the really rich guy that,
he's a suit.
Doesn't listen to anyone and does whatever he wants. We don't like him now. He sucks.
Yeah, kind of a big tonal shift there.
Yeah.
I think they just really want somebody to hate.
Oh, for sure.
Regardless of how I feel on the subject, which I'm pretty indifferent to it. I'm just like, is there wrestling on TV? Can I watch it on YouTube the next day?
Right.
I'm good.
So, what do you guys? We're on the topic of sort of these like authorities. Nick Khan hasn't been on TV, but if he takes over as the Vince McMahon type big heel, behind the scenes, you got to put him on TV, man. That's just money, right? Like, you're not going to throw away an angle that makes money. I personally have always hated authority figures. I want ECW lawlessness. Like, I don't want it to seem like one person controls the show. I want it to seem like a wrestling show that we, as fans almost dictate, or at least just what stories dictate it. Not that an authority figure dictates it. I always hated that, like, Teddy Long. We wouldn't know what the hell's going on SmackDown until Teddy Long.
A gimmick authority.
The gimmick authority, yes, that's what I mean. I meant to tie it back to the topic of gimmicks. But you guys... Vicky Guerrero, I always wanted to change the channel whenever her, stuff would be on.
I think authority figures, other than Vince, I would say they're all cool, but they fizzle out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like Vicky, she was at first, and then pretty soon everyone's like, kind of just annoyed by her,
Yeah.
So...
I think she had a little bit of like, because we all love Eddie. So when, she was given a role, it was like, by proxy, we will give you all of our energy that we can, but it's finite, and then it just kind of withered. And I don't know. I never liked a show starting off. I want to see stuff happen, but I have to sit through half an hour of like, Scott D'Amore setting up Moose versus whoever. Like, I don't want that. Give me the gimmicks. Give me the good gimmicks. Send out Doink the Clown.
So, speaking of bad gimmicks, you know what I think the absolute worst gimmick is?
Ooh, let's hear it.
Ooh, I hope they're not listening.
Ones that the worker doesn't, like, put anything into. You know what I'm saying? When someone has a gimmick and they just...
Yeah, like Funkasaurus.
They don't try. They just go, okay, they sometimes it's a gimmick given to them, and they walk out and they just go, oh, it's me, I'm a werewolf, woo.
Yeah.
Whatever. I think that is the absolute worst. That damages pro wrestling to me when I see that. And I think I'm in a very specific situation, being here at a wrestling school, seeing these shows, where we throw the students in, and maybe they have a gimmick they don't like, and they walk out and they just go,
Stonewall, the whole thing. They shut down. Yeah, I was actually just talking to one of the students, and I just come up with stupid gimmicks and I throw it at people, not meaning anything by it.
Right.
And so I just laughed, with them, and they were like, "That's like the 30th gimmick someone's given me," and I was like, "Yeah, but what do you want to do? Because that's what you're gonna put your heart into. You're not gonna have the same kind of." Experience and all of that. You're not going to put on as good of a show if you don't believe in what you're doing. So like whatever you think you should be doing, that's what you should be doing. It shouldn't be what other people, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I would go as far as to say the gimmick / character is more important than the wrestling part. Now, I know that sounds bad. I want you to be trained. I want you to be safe and everything.
Of course.
But this is what I'm talking about, okay? Let's say you're the world's best wrestler. You do really cool spots, whatever. You'll work out in the indie scene, right? Because people will pay to watch you do some cool spots. But if they ever take you to any of the big leagues, you won't last long. And so how many times can we think of where an amazing wrestler, and I don't mean did nothing at all but just wrestled and worked out for him?
Right.
There's not a lot.
Long term.
Right. Now, how many, I don't want to say crappy wrestler because I don't want to put anyone down, but how many people was gimmick and their performance was so strong on the character side that they didn't have to do cool stuff or be a technical or a powerhouse or anything in the ring.
Oh, yeah, dude. Just look at Hogan. He did amazing in Japan. You watch his match with Muda, he's putting on, like, grapevine leg locks and, like, all this crazy technical stuff. And so, like, he can do it. Anybody who says that Hogan's a crappy wrestler, like, never mind. We can't swear on here. So, yeah, he just decided that I can get farther by being more of a gimmick and doing less in the ring. No, absolutely.
I was going to say Enzo comes to mind for me.
I 100% think of Enzo.
Mr. Break his ankle on a lockup.
Yeah, he how big were they? And before all the outside ring crap that happened, how big were they? Just
Did he really break his ankle in a lockup?
That's what I've heard. That I've heard it from multiple people. You know. But I wasn't there, so I don't know.
But I mean, think of how big they got, and they were hot. They were like white hot off him just coming out saying the whole like he's 7 feet tall and you can't teach that and all that stuff he was saying. I mean, they got title runs, and
they were massively over, dude.
They were, and people loved it because the way he talked.
And I was surprised because NXT was kind of like the super indie type of fan, right? Mm-hmm. Back in those days, there was a lot of like, you know, the Pox versus Neville, or I'm sorry, that's the same guy. The Nevilles versus like Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Those guys were around and they were getting, you know, huge accolades and stuff like that. But then this tag team that only did like, you know, 5 moves but cut great promos and got the crowd fired up during their entrance. They were on that same level of like, you know,
because
of being over.
Ultimately, who decides if we're good?
The fans.
The fans. And
or
if
Vince McMahon.
Well, that's true. But if the fans love you, they will support you to the end, right?
Yeah.
And they, you know, if you have a tough time in the ring, and I mean, maybe you were missing spots and it's obvious, you can tell that type of stuff, they will still support and love you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, but they have to build that relationship first.
Right.
And if that's you coming out doing a funky little dance and saying a cool little, you know, whatever on the mic that gets over, the fans, I guess I should say their leeway with you is, you know, miles and miles long. Compared to if you're the guy who goes straight to the ring and sucks, they're booing you and telling you to get out of there.
No, it's true.
Right. I forget if I heard this or I thought it up myself, so take it with a grain of salt. My thought has always been, you know, it's way easier for a crowd to grab onto a concept than it is like a person, you know. You come out representing something and it's way easier to understand, it's way easier to latch onto, you know. Like Benjamin Greenback, you know, he walks out, he's wearing a stupid money suit. Like, no real millionaire, billionaire wears something like that. But, you know, Benjamin Greenback does. He comes out and he goes, I am rich and bad. And people go, I hate that.
Yeah.
I don't like that guy. And I think that's why he gets over so well here at AAPW.
Yeah.
You know, because there's no mystery to it. You know, it's get it across. Like, I always think, and I know Steve-O told me this, he's like, have your gimmick be that like a 5-year-old can understand it in a couple seconds.
Right.
And I feel like that's pretty true. I'm just like, you know, yeah.
Well, you know, you talk about like a rich guy isn't walking around in a money suit, right? But what do we do in pro wrestling? We take whatever it is, like, oh, rich guy, we add that exclamation point on the end.
Right.
We put that big, hey,
yeah.
Not only am I rich, but I'm going to tell you I'm rich. I'm going to show you I'm rich And then I'm going to rub it in that I'm rich. And we're going to do it hardcore on all three.
Right.
I don't mean hardcore wrestling. I mean we're going to hammer it to you, though.
Right.
I think. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I'm just gonna be selfish a little bit about who I think my favorite indie gimmick was, and then it became WWE gimmick, but against their will. So, Brody Lee, when he was on the Indies, he would wear jeans and a beater. And this beater would be brand new from Walmart, and he would get to the show, and he would take it out and put it under the car, and just like rub a bunch from underneath the car on the shirt, and then put it on, and he was ready to wrestle. I always thought it was great, and he just looks so like a truck driver, you know, like he's got this huge bushy beard and these like big. I always thought they were friendly eyes, but they, you know, are real
Right.
big.
Big old dude, you know, just.
Yeah, and. Okay, so he gets signed, and if you ever saw it, they put him in trunks. When he got to NXT, he became a trunks guy. And like, it's okay. He's definitely, he had a, you know, good body, but it didn't look great. It didn't look like a gimmick. It was just black trunks. And then eventually when they, you know, were ready to put him on TV, they just looked at him and were like, man, we ain't doing any better than you got it. Like, you know what you were doing. Go and put those jeans and beater back on and get out there. And that's what he brought. You know, he brought all that stuff from the indies to, like, the Wyatt group. You know, he was still, for a while, just wearing, like, his jeans and beater. And I think maybe a jacket went over. But yeah, you know, some people just know, they see what they are, and they just know how to, like, build off of that. And he was one of those guys who was just like, look, I'm this dirty Western New Yorker with like you know, big beard and stuff, so let's go all the way with it.
All right. So earlier, you mentioned you misspoke and said a wrestler wrestling themselves. That made me think of something.
Gimmick?
That made me think of something that I've always thought of a million times. You know what I would love to see? I want to see the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes versus Stardust.
Yeah.
I want that match more than anything in the world, and that's impossible. You got any?
Well,
you got any matches like that?
We have seen.
I do.
We've seen Undertaker versus Undertaker.
True. Who was under the fake taker? It was I think it was kind of like a no-namer guy.
It was.
Like,
I mean, he's an indie wrestler, but
Yeah.
he was. I don't think he wasn't like Kane as fake Diesel.
Was it one of the brothers, the Harris brothers?
Maybe.
I don't know. I'm just shooting.
But you know, like I said, doesn't mean nothing because
so
fake Diesel turned into Kane.
The match I would just, if I get to Heaven's Gates and I'm like, God, can you do one thing for me? And like before I go to hell, can you make Ric Flair wrestle Ric Flair? So just
2 hour time limit.
Well, I want to know who calls it. I want to see who's in there like, brother, I'm calling this one. You duck the line and take a backdrop. Brother, you do the up and over, come back, take a backdrop. No.
Would you want to see like an older Ric Flair against a younger Ric Flair? Because I think that'd be interesting.
I want him when he was his peak narcissistic, whenever that is.
Okay.
And just two of them to have to deal with each other.
You know what? I kind of like to watch every once in a while when they're good workers is when you have two hosses go at it.
Okay.
And when I say hoss, I mean like
Earthquake versus Typhoon.
yeah, but I'm thinking a little more like you know back when Walter wrestled PCO. Like two just giant guys, they're known for their strength.
Wait, where did that happen?
And when New Orleans when they had when Mania was
one
there.
Of the WrestleCon
yeah, look it up.
matches?
It's a great match.
That sounds sick.
It's kind of what got PCO going second time around.
No shit.
Yeah. But so if I go back and I think like those crazy old bigger like maybe Brody, if Brody versus Brody.
Yeah.
Or maybe Stan Hansen versus Stan Hansen. Two blind guys just swinging for the fences. I mean, stuff like that I think would be cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, the fuse is getting short, so it's time for everyone's favorite part of a Buckle Bomb episode, ABP. Always be plugging. Warsaw, what you got coming up? What are your socials? Give it to me.
Check me out on Instagram, Warsaw Nation. You'll see more and more details on how AAPW is constantly screwing over the 12-time AAPW 24/7 champion. And even though they're keeping him down and management and Ray won't book him matches, he's still finding ways to prove that he's a fighting champion with all his honor.
Nice. How about you, Jordan?
Man, I don't have anything to plug, so I'll just throw it back to AAPW school. I'm just being happy, living my life with my wife, and coming to the school to see the future talents of our business, and hopefully be able to pass on just a little morsel of knowledge that I have about this business. But if you really want to be trained the right way, do come down to AAPW. Yeah, that's all I got.
All right. Well, that has been another episode of The Buckle Bomb, and you have been blown up.